My name is Olga, your host, and today we're going to dive into a very interesting subject, which is the difference between pain and suffering. I believe pain is inevitable, and I also believe suffering is optional. Let's dive in to explore more what I mean by that. Okay, before we dive into the subject, I wanted to follow up on some personal information, give you an update on what's going on in my life, share some thoughts, and also give you a bit of a background as to why I'm diving into the subject. A few episodes ago, I told you that I went to Montreal with my husband and another couple, friends of ours. We both left our children with the grandparents, and it was a bit of a spur of the moment decision. It was their anniversary, and there was a DJ playing at a nightclub that they really liked, and they invited us to go because the tickets were quite expensive, and it made sense to just more of us to be in the VIP section. And my husband happens to know this DJ and loves it. Generally speaking, this is the kind of plan that in his single days he would have loved doing. Me, on the other hand, not at all. Going to a club at midnight is not for this grandma over here. However, I thought, what if I just try something out of my comfort zone with the decision to have fun? And guys, fun I had. And that's what I wanted to tell you. During the last episode, I kind of mentioned it, but it was not related at all with what I was talking about. Whereas today, it's somewhat relatable. I had to do some mental work before even saying, yes, I'll come with you to Montreal, so that I was really in alignment with what I wanted and the attitude that I wanted to have. And guys, I drank maybe a little bit of alcohol, but if you saw me at this concert, you would have thought that I was on a lot of things, alcohol and probably more. I had the most fun. I did not stop dancing. I'm a bit upset I didn't have my Apple Watch on to see how many steps I took on that dance floor, but I had such a blast. All because, one, I decided to, yes, walk out of my comfort zone, but with the attitude that I was open to having a good time. And a good time I had. So much so that I'm thinking, where was I? All of my 20s, missing out on these parties. So much fun. Also, I was not hungover like the rest of them the next day. So truly, I am convinced I had the most fun. And my secret was to give them, especially my husband, permission to have fun in his own way, while I was also not going to let anything interrupt my fun. For those of you who are in long-lasting relationships or have been, you probably know what I mean. When your husband might want to stay longer than you want to, might want to drink more than you want to, and you're just like, oh my God, please don't. You kind of want to not go or just modify their behaviors so that you can have a good time. And that would have been me a few years ago, but not this past week or a few weekends ago when I went. And you know what? Maybe it's true what they say, wisdom comes with aging. I'm wiser. I had a blast. So that's what I wanted to say about leaning towards discomfort, yet with an open mind while getting out of your comfort zone. You might be surprised as to what you might find in there. Super fun. Okay. Now, today's subject. What is going on? Pain, suffering. What is all that about? I want to tell you that I became fully aware of this concept in my super early 20s. I might have been 20. And it was so revealing to me that I had the option to not suffer the pain. And over the last few weeks, I think I've had the same type of coaching 3 or 4 times a week with different clients. They, in a nutshell, are resisting the pain that has been brought by life. And in doing so, they're creating suffering. Not only do they now have the pain of what life is presenting, but on top of that, with their response to the pain, they are adding suffering. And so I've been giving this analogy nonstop to everybody, and I'm now going to give it to you. And then we're going to dive in. When life gives you lemons, which it will, and your attitude towards that is to paddle your boat upstream, you exhaust yourself, you run out of battery, energy, patience, all things. You stress yourself out, you don't make it to your goal, and you create suffering. Suffering is the going upstream. When you recognize pain has arrived to your life, get on that same little boat, and instead of paddling against the current, you join the current and paddle with it. You still feel the bumps, you still feel a bit of the uncertainty that you don't know where this is going, but you will not suffer. Okay, let's dive in, shall we? Let's start by breaking down the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is a universal experience. The difficulties, the losses, the trials, the inevitable things that happen in life that touches all, that is pain. Suffering, on the other hand, is the way we respond to pain, often by resisting it or attaching negative stories to it. So how do we perceive and interpret our pain? Greatly impacts whether we suffer or not. So I want to explore the role of mindfulness and self-compassion in changing our perspective in life's challenges. I will say I was 20 when I was attending regularly a yoga studio downtown Ottawa. And I remember they were doing a book club, and I joined it and I bought the book, The Power of Now. And I loved it. And if you haven't read it, look for it. And we would meet weekly to have discussions about the book. And that's when I was first introduced to this idea that comes from mindfulness, where suffering is optional. Pain, on the other hand, is always coming. Now we have physical pain, we have emotional pain, from every, like from being alive kind of pain. Like when you lose something that you care about, someone that you care about, when finances get, really complicated and you don't have enough money to pay for your bills, that's painful. When relationships are going through trials, that's difficult. When your confidence is diminished because there's a lot more people at work doing their job in better ways than you think you are, that's painful. So pain is always coming to visit us, no matter who you are. Nobody can ever escape pain if they're alive. A heartache, disillusion, betrayal, Those things happen. But I want you to think about clean pain and dirty pain. Clean pain is that one when your heart gets broken. Nothing to do. It is human to fall in love and fall out of love. It is human to be alive and lose somebody who loses their life. That's clean pain. The pain that comes from just being a human having a human experience. Now, suffering is dirty pain. Dirty pain is when we have a loss of a pregnancy, and we respond to it by blaming ourselves, by shaming ourselves. I should have done this. I should have done that other thing. I shouldn't have done this. That creates suffering. Clean pain is painful, but comes and goes. Dirty pain, aka suffering, it's sticky. It lingers. That's why it's dirty. So, when painful things happen in our life, we have one of two options. Resist it, hate it, pretend that it's not there, get on that canoe and paddle against the current, because we're under the illusion that by doing so, we're fixing the problem. We're under the illusion that by fighting it, we're actually moving towards our goal. We're under the impression that by resisting the pain that is showing up into our life, we are healing. We're showing up strongly. But the opposite is true. You are creating pain in that resistance. You're creating stress in that resistance. And most importantly, you're blocking yourself, because no one can move past pain when you are in suffering mode. So your brain will trick you into dirty pain, suffering, as a form of, making you pay for the pain in your life. It seems like it pretends to be supportive, but it's not. Is that inner dialogue to the pain that is happening. Why is this happening to me? Of course this is happening to me. I was coaching somebody today, and she was not in the greatest of places, in a lot of suffering. So life is giving her a mental health condition, and in response to that, she's resisting it, and she's creating a lot of suffering for herself. And she would say things like, I just don't know. I can't imagine my life without this suffering. I'm broken. I can't keep up with my routine every single day. Therefore, there's something really wrong with me. Right? So we all have like this inner dialogue that makes that pain feel worse than it needs to be. I want to encourage you to feel your emotion, to feel your pain. It will not break you. It will not expose you. Sometimes I feel my clients think that feeling the feeling fully is exposing them to some kind of bacteria that's going to kill them. I've had so many painful life experiences in my life. I do wish none of them has left me lingering suffering. And it's not because I didn't suffer for a little bit, but because at some point I realized that dirty pain, that suffering was absolutely not useful and was not allowing me to move past into healing. So the first strategy I want you to think about to transform pain into resiliency is the willingness to feel that emotion going through you fully. Listen, betrayal, heartache, disappointment, physical pain, a diagnosis you don't want to have, a diagnosis that somebody you love is having that you don't want them to have. All of that human pain that comes from being alive, it's inevitable and it's just going to go through you. It truly will. It's just having that willingness to feel is what's going to make you get sooner to a place of mental clarity and maybe seeing the lessons in the experience, because pain always comes with lessons. You guys have probably heard the phrase of like growing pains. Well, you still have growth through those painful moments, and that's what's, that's the silver lining. At the end of the pain, there is a lot of growth. However, if you choose to suffer instead, there is zero growth. You feel stuck. These are the people who say, I haven't been able to move past it. Anytime a client of mine brings to a session the idea that they're stuck somehow in a life event, I know for a fact that they haven't felt the emotions that life event brought for them. And that's what we do in coaching. We become curious. So what are you feeling? How are you feeling it? Where does it feel it? Can you hold space? All of us are terrified of feeling our own feelings because we're under the misconception that they're going to stay there forever, right? What if I never get out of this sadness? Guess what? It takes a total of 90 minutes. Sorry, 90 seconds. To go through an emotion. The emotion shows up and 90 seconds later is gone out of your body. But when the emotion shows up and we resist it and we add suffering with our own inner dialogue, we interrupt the emotion. The emotion tries to come up again and again and again. And so you would think that this emotion isn't leaving you, but this emotion is just waiting to be born and let go. So my first tool to transform that pain into resiliency is to have the willingness to feel it fully. There's a saying in Spanish that I love, might not make sense in English, but it's something along the lines of, it's better to have a painful end or ending than to have a pain without end. And what that refers to is better to feel fully that broken heart. As you're having it, so that you can heal it and process it, than it is to resist it, ignore it, avoid it, distract yourself, and keep going through every relationship, still thinking about that heartache that you never quite have healed. 90% or 100% of the times when people bring to my sessions an emotional pain, I know we're talking about it because they haven't processed it, they haven't given themselves permission to feel. So first on the list, permission to feel. Even if you're afraid, feel it. Feel the feeling. I also want you to reframe acceptance, which is the second tool, is to accept that pain has arrived You can accept that pain sucks. You can accept that this pain that has arrived to your life is unfair. You can accept that it hurts. And by the way, accepting does not mean you are liking what's happening. A lot of people think acceptance equals liking. Of course, you're never going to like that your mom has cancer. But can you accept that she does? In mindfulness, we say, it is it. What happens is what happens. We can't change what is. That's acceptance, not changing what is because it's impossible. You can't change it. But you can look for support so that you can change your relationship with the pain that is showing up in your life. You can begin to think, okay, accepting equals me understanding that this pain has arrived. And choosing to not create suffering. And why me? Oh my God, and this is gonna be so hard next year when this is all done. Like, we just go on and on and on with our own suffering, with our own thoughts about it. But actually supporting yourself so that you can feel fully. Landing back into the present moment to fully be here for your pain. As present as you can. I know it's the opposite of what your brain wants to do, but it is the only way in which you will process and heal. Resiliency is such a beautiful thing. Those are the stories that make us feel alive and hopeful, right? When people say, and now it's become a bit of a marketing tool, where we hear a lot of people who are saying, I used to be depressed, wanting to end my life, and then I did this and it changed my life. Personally, I love listening to those inspiring stories. I love to hear how people use their pain to inform themselves, to be more human, to land into this human experience a bit wiser. A client of mine texted me this week and said, hey, I think my relationship with my best friend is coming to an end. And I'm trying to ask myself questions to help me figure it out why this hurts so much. And I said to her, why this hurts so much is irrelevant, but you're hurting so much. So a better question to ask is, how can I be present for this hurt while the hurt is going through me? Like, if you can call any life event that is difficult just a neutral pain. Oh, pain has arrived. Pain is going through me. You begin to break a bit the story that you have about the pain and the situation. You begin to detach from the mental drama, and you begin to just land in presence of your present moment, of your emotions. Each time you give yourself permission to feel, you're taking care of your needs. You're healing. You're processing. And that's what people who embrace resiliency do. They give themselves permission to feel. They look for support. They look for the gift behind the pain. So I said to my client, if this friendship was a gift, painful and all, because the end of a friendship is very painful. I've been through a few of those, and it is no different than a breakup. If this friendship, if pain was a gift and you were unwrapping it, what is the gift that is leaving you with? You can think about a divorce. You can think about a health condition. Anything that is happening to you right at this moment that is painful, that you find you are in suffering mode, shift that suffering for curiosity. Okay, this, we always hear like, this is happening for a reason. And you're like, what is the reason? And many times in the moment, we don't see the reason. It is later that we understand. But there is nothing to say that you cannot begin to look at your pain as it's happening, as this unwrapping, and getting curious to see, what is the gift? What am I unwrapping here? That is how you cultivate resiliency in your life. Resiliency is built by our ability to feel our feelings, to be present for our feelings, to be unapologetic about having our feelings. Recognize that you might need somebody to process these emotions with and feel these feelings with. And that's what a therapist and a coach are for. We will accompany you as you feel these feelings. And you begin to transform the thoughts that have brought you into suffering for thoughts that empower you and that allow you to show up with compassion. The role of mindfulness and self-compassion in changing your perspective is just so beautiful, because mindfulness means come back to the present. Bring your mind where the body is. Bring your mind where the body is. That means here, now, in this space you're in. Your mind is often in the future, but what if this happens? But what if that doesn't work? You probably have a trained brain to think of all the ways in which things cannot work. So mindfulness will help you shift a projection of pain in the future, aka suffering, to what is actually happening. Changing that what if for what is. Asking yourself, what would I need to feel this fully? I had a client of mine who we were doing this in a session last week. And she gave me the most beautiful answer. She said, what I need is to grab warm tea and go sit by a tree. Because trees are a great companion. They're strong, they're solid, they're neutral. So I'm going to go feel my feelings of grief next to a tree. I just thought it was so beautiful. So you never know what your brain is going to offer you as to what it is that you need to feel fully. Who can witness this pain with you? How can you begin to invite this concept of pain being inevitable, but opting out of suffering? Just because you're in pain, just because life gave you a life experience that is human, like loss, like betrayal, like physical pain, loss of a job, loss of income, loss of health, freedom, I'm not sure. Just because you're having anxiety, just because you're in postpartum depression, any of those pains that come with being a human. Just because you're experiencing that pain does not mean that you're also experiencing suffering. Suffering is the condition that you choose to address your pain. And spoiler alert, it doesn't work. It doesn't change anything. For the better. I suppose it changed something. And it's just attaching to negative stories and resisting what is. Okay, my friends, I hope this was helpful to you. This concept has been genuinely and honestly life-changing for me. In mindfulness, we develop this observing personality, the observer of ourselves. And each time I could observe that I was grabbing pain and melting it into suffering, I began to just free myself up by observing, oh, my brain wants to choose suffering, and just giving myself the empowerment to say, but I can choose otherwise. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You know what? I'm not gonna freaking opt for suffering. What am I? You know, it's not what I want to do. And I'm sure that's not what you want to do either. So this is just a friendly reminder that just because you experience pain, that does not mean you are experiencing or have to experience suffering. Your thoughts, your response to pain can make you a resilient person and transform that pain into healing and wisdom and gifts, and or into victimhood, suffering, and staying stuck and blocked. So there it is. As we're closing this episode, I want to tell you about my coaching program, Be the CEO of Your Life, same name as this podcast. It is a source of inspiration to me and to others. It opens for registration once a year, and this is it. This is when we are opening the doors now for our group of 2024. This is an intimate coaching experience that it is both group and individual. Next year, for this first time ever, I am giving members the option to opt out of one-on-one so that it can be more affordable. So we start in January. In January, we start with 3 calls as a group. And for those who choose to have one-on-one, is 1 45-minute one-on-one session with me specifically. We have an in-person virtual retreat in January to select our word of the year, to write our letter to our future self with our dreams and aspirations for the year, and where we determine what it is that we're going to personally develop and work on throughout the year. Whether you choose to have a one-on-one with me or choose the option of just group work, you all get to do this virtual retreat. We get to meet every month. You get to have incredible support all around. I will be your coach. I'll be in the back pocket. You can reach out to me in between sessions. We're going to have an in-person retreat like we just did with my current group at the end of the year, and we celebrate. We open up those letters. We celebrate our accomplishments. We celebrate who we've become in the process of going after those accomplishments or goals. We create a feeling of sisterhood like no other, where what joins us is this desire to show up with more heart into our life, to do the heart work. No hard work, but heart. We become really good friends in this group. We become supportive, and we get to understand ourselves so much deeply. So that registration is now open. The steps to sign up is book a one-on-one session with me for free, 15 minutes, so that we both get to explore the options and see if you're a good match. I am selective who comes into the group because I like to keep the group super small, so that is cozy. If I have a lot of people like I did this year, then I run 2 groups simultaneously, but both groups small. That way we, get to have a full cozy experience of intimacy in the group. You also get to learn from me. So all teachings happen outside of the calls. The calls are used for coaching. If you guys choose to do the one-on-one option, the program continues. I didn't change the price. It is the same as this year, which is $10,000 for the year. You get to pay monthly. That's Canadian, by the way. So all of you Americans, deduct 30% of my pricing. And if you choose to just do the group work, by the way, I say just, but that's enough coaching. I think it's $7,000 a year. And so it's the equivalent of $600 a month versus $900 a month. And if you're in Ontario, Canada, benefits, your health, extended health benefits likely cover this or part of it. So if this is of interest to you, if you want to join the 2024 group, if you want to be a part of this community, this is your time now. The link to sign up is on the show notes, is on my website. The program is called Be the CEO of Your Life. It is a 12-month coaching program because we're in for the transformation. We're not in to just test things out. We're in because we're committed to changing, to feeling free from the things that normally holds us down. I'll talk more about it to you over the next few episodes, but until then, go check it out on my website, and I'll talk to you guys next Monday. Bye now.